Hello again. Listen, I really enjoy talking to you, but we're gonna have to skip the niceties and get to the point this time. You may be wondering what's going on. Where's the cool intro? The overarching gag that contextualizes the video, the transitions, the 30-minute length? What have you done with the real rubric? Please tell us if you've killed him so we can finally stop watching his videos. Unfortunately for you, I'm still alive. Fortunately, however, I have something important to discuss. Something horrible, something tragic, something that has kept me awake day and night for the last few months. It's my civic duty as an, influencer to warn you of what haunts my nightmares. This won't take up a slot for the next video in June, so rest assured that this upload is but a result of my whimsical nature and a lack of impulse control. Do you remember this video? It did quite well. 1,000 views, 100 likes, and a bunch of insightful comments that were fun to reply to. My overall conclusion was that Chivalry 2 was not safe for sane people, but, considering I'm not sane, was something I enjoyed tremendously. 280 hours later, I'm excited to report I was completely fucking wrong. I cannot stomach it anymore. I just can't do it. To endure this game for a second longer is to know what hell is. So, in this bite-sized video, I want to quickly dive into why Chivalry 2 is insufferable for sentient life. Because I can already hear people typing very angrily in the comments, I need to clear something up. Chivalry 2 isn't a dead game, nor is it a game that I vilify on a mechanical or aesthetic basis. It's an extremely hilarious oddity where I can witness someone be beaten to death by the headbutt of a man who has had both his arms forcibly amputated, that is paired with a fighting system that offers simple basics and challenging complex techniques. I have spent 280 hours getting ostensibly better at this game, able to at least put up a good fight against some of the best clan players in the community, because it satisfies me to such a profound degree. It feels right to take someone's head off with a sledgehammer. Additionally, this lamentation of my sorrow is sourced from a purely duelist perspective. I haven't touched Team Objective in a very long time, and I don't know what the fuck is going on in there. It scares me. So, please do understand that the crux of my hatred is not because I can't be the victim of a metal bukkake from 6 different burly men dressed in tight, body-hugging fabric. It's because Chivalry 2 punishes me for trying to at all enjoy the competitive 1v1 experience. Duel servers offer a two-pronged experience, a competitive fighting mode where you can fight against a range of different adversaries of differing skill levels, or kindergarten.
Peekaboo!
It's an effective substitute for the duels matchmaking mode, because half the time people don't want to fight you, or they leave the game immediately, not to mention it takes ages to even get into a match. An entire server gives you a wide selection of opponents, and also lets you socialize a bit with those you recognize. But, like any other fool, you may wrongly assume that these servers value 1v1s like they are a sacred religious item. You'd be wrong. In fact, there's a special system where someone can object to your fight to the death by spontaneously cleaving you in half and running away. And these people will not leave you alone. They will pursue you endlessly, and they will not stop until your gladiatorial aspirations are dashed by their blade. Why is this? What is the cause of this scourge? It's because 90% of the players are cunt. There really are only two different player archetypes. First, you have the FFAer. This offender, typically a new player, has no fucking clue what server they just joined, and will consistently always try to kick you no matter what. They will never understand that I'm going to continue swinging through their kick, because, God be damned, these boots were made for kicking, and that's what they're gonna fucking do. Alone, they're nothing to worry about. They're feeble, socially stunted, and can be dispatched with ease. But that's the problem. They are never on their own. They're solitary animals that will temporarily team up with members of their own kind to inconvenience you at every opportunity before fighting between themselves for the spoils of war. Sometimes hilarious, but ultimately extremely annoying. And then that leaves the second archetype. Can any of you guess? No? Here's a hint. I think it's extremely subtle.
I am Adolf Hitler!
That's right. Hearts of Iron players, the Werehaboos, Daddy Adolf's little schnitzels. You will not fail to see these people spouting the most batshit insane, abhorrently incorrect, ridiculously removed from reality ideas at every opportunity. It's not just calling people slurs, it's voicing their desire to involve you in their play-by-play of Mein Kampf. Now you may be thinking to yourself, but Smug, surely there can't be that many. Well, let me put it this way. Why do you think no one says anything when one of these guys are talking? Because why would they need to speak their mind when the Hitlerite, just spoke it for them. When people are trying to arrange to fight me in person because I jabbed them in a video game, but don't care about the Nuremberg convict reading his manifesto in which they detail how they are going to massacre everyone with a hint of melanin in their system, it doesn't paint a great picture of those that inhabit the community. Look, I get it. As a rule, gamers suck. It's to be expected that multiplayer games will have their fair share of social rejects. I've played games with hostile people. In fact, the number of times rowdy gentlemen on the other team will claim that I do not have sex with women, but instead get thoroughly fucked by burly men on the regular is way too high to keep track of. Joke's on them though, I'm into that shit. Point is, I'm not unfamiliar with hostility, it's par the course for the industry. But, in other games, my enjoyment isn't necessarily impeded by their behaviour. They're a piece of shit, I mute and move on. But in Duels, it's a prison cell, decorated as a playground. I'm stuck with 29 extremely neurotic, emotionally sensitive people that will endlessly interrupt my game over the slightest and practically non-existent incident. And think about it for a moment. These are real people. These incompetent, fragile, and insane players are living, breathing, and existing human beings. Individuals trusted around sharp objects, alcohol, heavy machinery,
forklift certified. Oh my god!
Children, and a right to vote. It's terrifying to think that a war club user is allowed to drive a car. But that's what the vote kick is for. A moderation tool by the people, for the people, where disruptive players can be voted out and removed from the match so more reasonable members can carry on having fun.
What a joker.
The vote kick system is laughable, an infinitely abusable tool that people repeatedly use to knowingly have innocent players kicked for their own amusement. Console players can't even see the chat, they can't see what reasons are being given for a vote, so unknowingly enact the malicious intent of evildoers by having people exiled from the lobby. It is a hilarious yet frustrating experience to beat a high-level player through an arduous battle only for him to turn around and say, actually, that's bad manners, and kick me from the lobby. You have to understand how maddening this double standard is, that you can overtly voice your desires to comb Muslims with a machete and no one's gonna bat an eye, but if you use taunts a few times during a fight, you're given the electric chair. This useless tool, one that sometimes doesn't even reach the total vote count before blindly passing a verdict, makes duel servers lawless zones of chaos, where barbarians and raiders run amok, leaving many a brave warrior and the duel's experience as a whole slain in their wake. Try to go into another server. Go ahead. I fucking dare you. It's not a one-time instance, it's an unstoppable contagion. And you know what the worst part is? That I'm not done. I find it to leave a bad taste in my mouth when I see people attack developers for extremely innocuous, irrelevant, and inconsequential things. Bomb threats have been sent over many a frivolous incident, and trust me, that's not going to change anytime soon. So, please, know the pain it brings me that I find myself accosting Torn Banner Studios for what I can only describe as an insurmountable incompetence. The vote kick is literally all we have. Us starving duel players rely on this for the bare minimum source of moderation. But then, a new update comes out, new weapons, new skins, another battle pass. Wow, how cool. I sure hope they didn't break anything in the process. Somehow, in the process of uploading cosmetic items and battle passes, aspects of the game completely unrelated to moderation systems, they broke the vote kick. Your democratic right to have someone removed from the match was gone. The marauders would not be removed, and, even worse than the barbarians, neither would the hackers. Players blatantly cheating that would fly around, butcher you in a second, and fly off elsewhere. There was no way you could share a fair fight with someone without a sudden interruption from this phantasmic demigod. It takes a while, but TBS eventually comes around. This has to be fixed. It's a dire situation. The masses are suffering. So they announce a hotfix. They promise to restore our right to vote. And, to everyone's surprise, they do. And then to everyone's expectation they broke it again. Now players would be removed from a lobby, but almost immediately would be able to rejoin if they remembered the map and server name. Vote kicking went from completely useless to completely useless with a little bit of fanfare. And it was because of this egregious idiocy, coupled with the time that it took to fix something so integral to moderation, that we got to witness evolution firsthand. The FFAers weren't just solitary hunters anymore, they became pack animals. No longer would you be set upon by one lone beast, but instead multiple ravenous savages that could only slate their thirst with your blood. Clans became more daring. There were no longer massacres, but instead orchestrated and targeted political pogroms in which clan members would log in together and annihilate the local populace in groups of 5 and more. Through the failings of TBS, this putrid life flourished into even more hideous forms that sought to keep bringing me dread. You can't hide, you can't run. This unemployed 29-year-old male playing at 2 PM on a Monday will find you, and he will teabag your corpse. And this problem comes all the way down to the source. The apathy of Torn Banner Studios. I think it's fair to say that I know nothing of game development, and because of that, it's not particularly fair to surmise the priorities and focuses of the developers without it. I'm sure there are members of a team who understand the turmoil the game is in. It's likely Tripwire, despite that, want them to keep pushing battle passes. But what I can, and will, criticize them for, is lackluster moderation. Remember this guy? This guy, whose name references immigrants arriving on dinghies to the UK? A guy who, very brazenly, called me a Well, do you also remember when I said that it's likely Torn Banner Studios didn't do anything about the most open and shut case of video game toxicity because they refused to update me on it? Well, what if I told you that they did, in fact, do fucking nothing about it? He'd assumed an alias, likely because his clan pals weren't too happy with his extracurricular passions, but this was no doubt the very same guy. He even responded to his older username. And when I go back to Torn Banner Studios and explain that this guy is still playing, that they are still letting people like him play their game, they didn't explain. They didn't elaborate. They didn't even tell me if this was the original account or an alt account that he had hopped on. They just went, haha, wow, that's crazy. Now please go away. It's not just that the vote kick doesn't work. It's not just that most people who play this game are extremely hostile and not fun to be around. It's not just that I can't go a single match without being dragged into some manner of gang warfare. It's that TBS seemingly doesn't care. What I brought to them had no nuance. It had no missing context. It had no bigger picture. It was as straightforward as an unpleasant individual being very openly unpleasant and them simply not caring. And you may be sitting there wondering, why does this matter? So what? Some people are toxic. So what? Sometimes you get killed during a fight. So what? You can't engage with a game in a manner that respects and appreciates its complex fighting system. If you find yourself thinking this, I would like to pause and briefly extend my sympathies towards you before rounding out my dissatisfaction. Why? Because it must be extremely boring being in that padded cell, you fucking lunatic. Take everything that I just said into account. The hostility, the massacres, the destruction of the only tool that barely did anything, and the continuing lack of care at the highest rung of game support. Are these problems as apparent in Team Objective, the flagship mode of Chivalry 2? I don't know. I can't say the experience for the average player is ruined. Some people like endlessly running into a bloodbath, and if that's your desired experience, you're playing the right game. But let's say you want to actually enjoy the combat. You want to riposte and counter and have a meaningful fight that isn't interrupted by an entire lobby of players. You can't. You just can't. Even if you don't give a shit about the toxicity, even if you turn off the chat, you cannot play the game. You're going to be constantly interrupted, you're going to be endlessly chased down, and you're going to be unable to go to anyone about it. And I know what some people are already saying, another hotfix is coming, they're going to fix the vote kick, but guess what? A working vote kick wasn't even fucking good anyway. It being broken wasn't bad because it worked so well, it was bad because there was nothing else to fucking moderate the space. Over the course of the 280 hours I put into this torture, I have uninstalled and reinstalled this game 10 times. What brought me back? Hope. A naive and foolish thought that maybe, just maybe, this time is going to be different. Maybe, just maybe, I'll be among like-minded folk who don't threaten to fuck me in the ass when I beat them. And then, that stupid expectation would shatter, and the cycle would begin anew. So I don't care if they're going to fix the vote kick. I don't care if they're going to shower Chivalry 2 in more cosmetics, and maps, and weapons, and voices. None of it will make the players less hostile, make the duels less chaotic, and certainly none of it is going to make TBS give a shit. I despise Mordhau, and somehow there has never been a more effective advertising campaign for it than TBS's continuing mismanagement of Chivalry 2. Please, I implore you, don't Play this. Play something else. Go outside, get a job, take up a hobby, start a family, live out your golden years and die without experiencing the scourge that is this game. There is no way to fully utilize the game's combat and appreciate it. There is no way to partake in a fun, competitive experience, and there really is no way that Chivalry 2 can be sufferable for sentient life.